So let me ask you something. What actually gets you up in the morning? Seriously, what makes you do the things you do?
That's a big question to kick things off.
It is. And I bet for most people, the first thought is probably, rewards, money, maybe praise, getting that promotion.
Or avoiding the bad stuff,
Yeah.
right? Like missing a deadline or worse.
Exactly. The stick, not just the carrot. But what if? What if that whole system, that carrot and stick thing we've relied on forever, what if it actually, doesn't work for a lot of the stuff we do today?
I mean, what if it actually makes things worse?
Yeah, worse. What if it can actually crush creativity or even make you perform less well and, maybe strangest of all, kill your genuine interest in something?
Okay, now you're touching on the core idea from Daniel Pink's book, Drive.
That's the one. Drive. The surprising truth about what motivates us. And honestly, it's kind of revolutionary. So today, that's our deep dive. We're going to unpack this whole thing
Challenge the standard thinking, you mean?
completely. We want to look at the science, some really surprising findings, and give you, the listener, some real tools to understand what actually drives you and maybe the people you work with or live with. Get ready for some real eye-openers.
And it's crucial to remember, this isn't just Pink, like riffing on ideas. He's built this on decades, literally like 4 decades of solid scientific research.
Right, not just philosophy.
No. Psychology, economics, sociology, real studies from respected places. He's basically arguing that our view of how people work, especially at work, is often based on these really outdated ideas.
Like we're still using Windows 95 in a world of AI.
Something like that. We need a shift, he says, away from just external rewards and punishments that carrot and stick towards something deeper, something more, human. Intrinsic motivation.
That inherent drive inside us.
Exactly. That passion, that creativity, that desire for real achievement that comes from within.
Okay, so to really get this shift, Pink uses this great analogy. He talks about motivation as a kind of a societal operating system.
Like the software running in the background of how we organize ourselves.
Yeah, exactly. And just like computer software gets upgrades, he says our motivational operating systems have gone through upgrades over history. He calls them Motivation 1.0, 2.0, and 3.0.
It's a neat way to frame it historically, because you really can see these distinct stages in what primarily drove human behavior.
So let's start at the beginning, version 1.0.
Right. Motivation 1.0. This is the bedrock, the biological drive, pure survival mode.
Hunger, thirst.
Hunger, thirst, sex drive. The absolute basics needed for us as individuals and as a species to survive and continue. Think about early humans. Their whole world revolved around finding food, finding shelter, staying safe.
That drive powered everything.
Absolutely. Pink has this little example, Jonathan 1. If someone is genuinely starving and you put a sandwich in front of them,
They eat it. End of story.
precisely. It's direct, primal. Motivation 1.0 is about fulfilling those fundamental biological needs. Simple as that.
Okay, makes sense. Survival first. So what prompted the upgrade to 2.0?
Well, society's got more complex, right? We started organizing, building things, and then, crucially, the Industrial Revolution happened. Work changed.
Assembly lines, factories.
Exactly. And that led to Motivation 2.0. The extrinsic drive. This is the one we all know. The carrot and stick.
Rewards and punishments.
You got it. It really took hold when work became more structured, more measurable. Think about that factory floor again. Tasks were often simple, repetitive.
Easy to count output.
Right. So more widgets, more pay, that's your carrot. Mess up, fall behind, less pay, maybe get sacked, that's the stick.
And Pink has an example for this too.
He does, Jonathan, too. He offers someone, I think it was 10 pounds, just to hold a book for 30 seconds. And what happens?
They perk up, focus, do the task for the cash.
Exactly. It works because the underlying assumption of Motivation 2.0 is that humans are, and this is a key phrase, fundamentally inert and passive.
Meaning we won't do anything unless there's an external push or pull.
That's the core belief of that system. We need rewards or threats to get us moving.
Okay, but here's the thing. Most jobs today aren't like that factory floor, are they? We're not just cranking out widgets. We're, designing software, solving complex problems, managing teams, dealing with tricky customer issues.
You've absolutely hit the nail on the head. That's the huge problem with relying only on Motivation 2.0 now in the 21st century.
It doesn't fit.
For purely routine, mechanical, step-by-step tasks, what Pink calls algorithmic tasks, Motivation 2.0 can actually work. That narrowed focus helps when the path is totally clear.
Like just follow the instructions.
Exactly. But most jobs today in this knowledge economy are different. They're complex and need creativity, problem solving, thinking outside the box. Heuristic tasks, he calls them.
And you can't just bribe someone to be creative.
Right. You can't command insight. You can't force curiosity with a bonus or a threat. The old operating system just isn't equipped to handle the demands of modern work. It's like trying to run complex simulations on a pocket calculator.
Okay, so this is where it gets really interesting and maybe a bit mind-bending. If survival 1.0 isn't the whole story, and rewards and punishments 2.0 actually mess things up for creative work, what's left? What is this third drive?
This is where Motivation 3.0 comes in. And the first clues, amazingly, didn't come from studying people initially. They came from monkeys.
Monkeys. Seriously?
Seriously. Back in 1949, a psychologist named Harry Harlow was doing experiments with rhesus monkeys. He gave them these simple mechanical puzzles to solve.
Expecting them to ignore it unless there was, like, a banana involved?
Pretty much. The standard thinking was no reward, no action. But what happened completely blew them away. The monkeys didn't just fiddle with the puzzles. They figured them out. They solved them.
With no reward.
With no external reward whatsoever. No food, no praise, nothing. They seemed to do it for the fun of it. They got intrinsic satisfaction from solving the puzzle itself. Harlow saw this as evidence of an innate drive to be autonomous, self-determined, and connected.
Wow. So just the act of figuring something out was its own reward.
It seemed so. And then, about 20 years later, in 1969, another researcher, Edward Deci, basically confirmed Harlow's findings, but this time with humans.
People did the same thing.
Yes. Deci's work showed we humans also have this inherent tendency to seek out challenges, to learn, to explore, purely for the enjoyment and satisfaction it brings. That deep internal desire to do something because you find it interesting, engaging, or personally rewarding, that's intrinsic motivation. And that, for Pink, is the engine of Motivation 3.0.
So beyond survival and paychecks, there's this built-in drive just to engage with the world, learn, and master things.
That's the fundamental idea. It's a core part of being human that Motivation 2.0 completely overlooks.
Okay, let's pause here because, common sense practically screams more money equals better performance.
Right.
Like, that's business 101.
It feels instinctive, doesn't it?
Totally. But get ready because the science throws a massive curveball here. In many situations, especially the ones needing brain power, the science says the exact opposite can happen. It's a bit freaky, honestly.
It really is. And let's be clear. Fair pay, that baseline compensation, is absolutely essential. We'll come back to that. But beyond that baseline, the research is pretty stunning. Higher monetary rewards for certain kinds of tasks can actively harm performance.
Oh, okay, I need an example, a big one.
All right, let's talk about the MIT study. Researchers there, economists actually, brought in students and gave them a range of challenges. Some were purely mechanical, like throwing a ball into a bucket. Others involved cognitive skills, memorizing digits, solving puzzles.
And they offered money.
Yes, 3 levels of reward: small, medium, and large cash prizes for performance, basically mimicking how companies often use bonuses.
Okay, so what happened?
Well, for the purely mechanical tasks, no surprises. Bigger reward, better performance, just like Motivation 2.0 predicts.
Makes sense.
And here's the bombshell, as soon as the task required even like basic cognitive, even rudimentary problem solving or creativity.
Let me guess. The big reward group did worse.
Exactly. A larger reward led to poorer performance. It's nuts. And this wasn't some fringe study, remember. These were economists from MIT, Chicago, Carnegie Mellon, funded by the Federal Reserve.
That's staggering. So offering more money for thinking tasks actually made people dumber at them.
It seems to hinder performance, yes. And they didn't stop there. They replicated this study in rural India.
Why India?
Because there, the rewards offered represented a much larger amount relative to average income. We're talking weeks or even months of salary. So the incentive was huge.
Surely that must have worked.
You'd think so. But nope. Same pattern. The people offered the medium reward did no better than the small reward group. And the group offered the top reward. They performed the worst of all on 8 out of the 9 cognitive tasks.
Okay, my brain hurts a little. Higher stakes, worse results for thinking work. Why? What is going on there?
It boils down to focus. And to understand why this happens, let's look at a really famous psychology experiment. The candle problem.
Ah, yes, the candle, the tax, the box. I remember this one. It's clever.
It's brilliant. So you're given a candle, matches, and a box of thumbtacks. The task: fix the candle to the wall so wax doesn't drip on the table.
And people usually try to tack the candle directly or melt it.
Right. They get stuck because they see the box only as a container for the tax. That's functional fixedness.
But the solution is to use the box itself as a shelf. Right. Empty it, tack the box to the wall, put the candle on it.
Exactly. You have to see the box's other function. Now, here's the experimental twist. They timed two groups. One just did the task. The other group was offered money for solving it faster.
Okay, based on the MIT study, I'm guessing the money group took longer.
Bingo. On average, the incentivized group took nearly 3.5 minutes longer to find the solution.
Wow, why?
Because if then rewards, like solve this fast for cash, do something critical, they narrow our focus. If the solution is obvious and straight ahead, that narrow focus is great. It speeds you up.
Like tunnel vision.
Precisely. But for problems like the candle problem, problems requiring creativity, insight, seeing connections, that narrowed focus is terrible. It's the enemy of creative problem solving because it blinds you to possibilities outside that narrow beam. You miss the clever lateral solution because you're too focused on the obvious path, spurred on by the reward.
Okay, that makes sense. The pressure of the reward makes you less flexible in your thinking, like trying to find lost keys when you're stressed.
Exactly that feeling. You just keep looking in the same obvious wrong places. And this backfiring isn't just about rewards. Punishments can go haywire too. Consider the Israeli daycare fine experiment.
What happened there?
So parents were often late picking up their kids, which was a hassle for the staff. The daycare decided to implement a small fine for late pickups. Seems logical, right? A deterrent.
Yeah, sounds reasonable. Did it work?
Complete opposite. Lateness actually increased. It went up steadily and settled at almost double the previous rate.
Get out. Why would people be more late when they had to pay?
Because the fine changed the whole dynamic. Before the fine, being on time was like a social or moral obligation. You felt bad making the teachers wait. It was about relationship.
Guilt was the motivator.
A powerful intrinsic one. But the fine turned it into a simple transaction. Parents thought, okay, I can just pay for this service of being late. The fine effectively removed the guilt. They could now buy lateness. And even when they removed the fine later, the lateness stayed high because that social contract had been broken.
That's wild. The fine crowded out the better internal motivation.
Precisely. So when Pink sums it up, he points to evidence that these traditional carrot and stick methods, especially for complex tasks, can lead to a whole list of negative consequences. Diminished intrinsic motivation, but also lower performance, less creativity, crowding out good behavior like we just saw, encouraging unethical shortcuts to get a reward, fostering addictions, and promoting short-term thinking over long-term health. It's a pretty damning case against relying solely on Motivation 2.0.
Okay, so if the old carrots and sticks are often the wrong tools, especially for the kind of thinking work most of us do now, what are the right tools? If we can't just dangle bigger bonuses or threaten people into being brilliant, what actually works?
This is where Pink introduces the core of Motivation 3.0. He says it rests on three essential elements: autonomy, mastery, and purpose, often shortened to AMP.
AMP.
And importantly, these aren't just pulled out of thin air. They're grounded in a well-established psychological framework called self-determination theory, or SDT.
SDT, what's the simple version of that?
Basically, SDT says that we humans have these fundamental innate psychological needs for autonomy, feeling in control, competence, feeling effective, which links to mastery, and relatedness, feeling connected, which links to purpose. When these needs are met, we thrive. We're intrinsically motivated, engaged, and psychologically healthy. It pushes us beyond just survival towards growth and learning.
So AMP taps directly into these deep human needs. Got it. Let's break them down. Starting with autonomy. What does that really mean in practice?
Autonomy is our inherent desire to be, essentially, the director of our own lives. In a work context, it means having meaningful control over what you do, your task, when you do it, your time, how you do it, your technique, and who you do it with, your team.
The 4 T's.
Exactly. Task, time, technique, team. It's not about being totally independent or unaccountable. It's about having that sense of volition, feeling like you're choosing your actions rather than just being forced or controlled. And that feeling, Pink argues, fosters true engagement, not just grudging compliance.
Like the difference between choosing to practice piano versus being forced to.
Perfect analogy. That internal choice makes all the difference. And we see companies putting this into practice with amazing results. Look at Atlassian, the Australian software company. They have these things called FedEx days.
Because you have to deliver something overnight?
Basically.
Yeah.
Once a quarter, they tell their developers, for the next 24 hours, work on whatever you want, however you want, with whomever you want. Total autonomy. The only rule is you have to show what you came up with the next day, usually over pizza and beer.
And
And these bursts of pure autonomy have generated countless software fixes, new product ideas, things that would never have happened under normal, directed work. It's not an if-then bonus, it's just getting out of talented people's way.
Trusting them to do something cool if you give them the space.
Precisely. And you see a similar idea with Google's famous 20% time.
Right, where they could spend a fifth of their time on their own projects.
Yeah. And think about what came out of that. Things like Gmail, Google News. Huge innovations. One engineer there said almost all the really good ideas bubbled up from that 20% time. It shows what happens when you give people agency.
It's not just tech companies, though.
Oh, absolutely not. Look at Zappos and their call centers. Call centers are usually, pretty soul-destroying places. High turnover, scripts, constant monitoring.
The opposite of autonomy.
Totally. Zappos flipped it. After training, they famously offered people $2,000 to quit, just to weed out anyone not truly committed. Then, for those who stay, the mandate is simple. Solve the customer's problem your way. No scripts, no time limits.
Really? No time limits?
None. If it takes an hour to make a customer happy, take an hour. And by giving that autonomy, even in a traditionally routine job, Zappos achieved legendary customer service scores and way lower turnover than the industry average.
Wow. So autonomy isn't just for creative geniuses. It can work anywhere.
It seems so. Other places, like Medius, got rid of fixed office hours, just focus on getting the work done. And it's not just individual autonomy. Companies like Whole Foods or W.L. Gore give teams a say in who they hire onto the team. That team autonomy builds incredible commitment.
The underlying message seems to be treat people like adults, trust them, give them control over their work, and amazing things happen. Okay, so you've got control. What about getting good at what you do? That's mastery, right?
Exactly. Mastery is that deep internal urge to get better and better at something that you genuinely care about. It's the drive for continuous improvement, for developing skills, for stretching yourself. The reward isn't necessarily external, it's the inherent satisfaction of learning, growing, and refining your craft.
Like that musician practicing scales for hours.
Perfect example. They're not doing it just for the concert. They're often doing it because they love the process of becoming a better musician. It's about engagement with the skill itself.
And this relates to that idea of flow.
Very much so. The flow state, a concept from psychologist Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, is that experience of being completely absorbed in an activity. You're fully immersed, focused, energized, time flies, you lose self-consciousness, and you're often performing at your absolute best.
Like being in the zone.
Exactly. And flow tends to happen when the challenge of the task is perfectly balanced with your current skill level. Not too easy, which leads to boredom, and not too hard, which causes anxiety. Pink calls these Goldilocks tasks just right.
And you can find that in anything, right? Sports, coding, writing, art.
Anything that allows for skill development and offers the right level of challenge. But maybe the most striking real-world example of mastery as a motivator is the open source movement.
Linux, Wikipedia, things like that.
Think about it. You have thousands of highly skilled software engineers, people who could command high salaries, spending their free time, their discretionary time, contributing to complex projects like the Linux operating system or the Apache web server. For free.
Why? Why do they do it?
When you ask them, the answers overwhelmingly come back to the challenge and the opportunity for mastery. They love tackling complex problems, honing their coding skills, learning from peers, and contributing to something significant. The intrinsic reward of getting better and solving hard problems is a massive driver.
So the desire to master a skill is powerful enough to build world-changing software, essentially for the love of the game.
It appears so, and other research strongly supports this. Studies looking at what really motivates people day to day at work found that the single biggest motivator wasn't recognition or incentives, but simply making progress in meaningful work.
Just feeling like you're moving forward, even small steps.
Yes. Small wins, consistent progress, feeling like you're developing and getting better at what you do, that's incredibly powerful for sustaining motivation long term. It's about the journey of improvement.
Okay, so we want control, autonomy, and we want to get better at stuff, mastery. What's the third piece? Purpose.
Purpose. This is the desire to connect our efforts to something bigger than just ourselves. It's about finding meaning in what we do, understanding how our work contributes to a larger cause, helping colleagues, satisfying customers, improving the community, maybe even making a small dent in the universe, as Steve Jobs put it.
So it's about context, knowing why your work matters.
Precisely. It taps into that fundamental human yearning for meaning and connection. Think about that bridge building analogy again. Maybe your job is just mixing concrete, but if you understand you're helping connect communities, that task takes on a whole new significance.
Is there research on this too? Does purpose actually make people happier?
There is. A fascinating study followed University of Rochester graduates over time. They looked at what the grads initially said their main life goals were. Some aimed for extrinsic stuff, money, fame. Others aimed for intrinsic goals, personal growth, helping others, community involvement.
And what happened years later?
The ones who chased primarily extrinsic goals, like profit, even if they achieved those goals, reported higher levels of anxiety and depression. But those who pursued intrinsic, purpose-driven goals reported greater happiness and overall well-being. It suggests we're wired for meaning, not just money.
Wow. So chasing purpose leads to more fulfillment than just chasing profit.
The evidence points that way. And you see businesses tapping into this. Tom's Shoes is a classic example.
Buy one, give one.
Right. That model directly connects the purchase to a larger purpose, helping someone in need. It appeals to customers and employees who want to feel they're part of something good. Or think about those inspiring founders, Steve Jobs wanting to put a ding in the universe, the Skype founders wanting to make the world a better place. That kind of clear, transcendent purpose fuels incredible effort.
It gives people a why.
Exactly. And Pink warns that when the profit motive gets detached from a purpose motive, when it's only about the money, that's when things can go wrong. Bad products, demotivated employees, unethical decisions. You need both profit and purpose.
So how can organizations actually foster this sense of purpose? It sounds great, but how do you do it?
Well, there are several practical things.
Yeah.
First, aligning with personal values is huge. People want to work for companies whose missions resonate with their own beliefs. One study said 82% of employees feel this is important. It builds pride.
Makes sense. What else?
Communicate the purpose relentlessly. Don't just talk about financial targets. Talk about the why. How does the company make a difference? And how does each person's role contribute?
You get visible.
Yes, and show the effects. Be transparent about successes, challenges, customer impact. Help people see the tangible results of their work. Also, recognize the impact people make, not just effort, but the difference they make towards the purpose. Simple thank yous, shout-outs. They matter.
Feeling seen and valued.
Absolutely. And welcome input. Let people have a voice in how the purpose is achieved. Salesforce found that employees who feel heard are way more likely to perform at their best. It builds ownership.
Anything else?
Things like employee resource groups, ERGs, can build community around shared values and missions. And investing in mentorship shows you care about people's growth within that larger purpose, building skills and connection.
So it's about articulating the why, connecting individual work to it, showing the impact, and valuing people's contribution towards that bigger goal. That transforms a job into something more meaningful. Okay, this AMP framework, autonomy, mastery, purpose, is really powerful. But let's get real for a second. We still live in a world with bills to pay. We can't just tell our bosses, forget the paycheck, I'm fueled by purpose.
No, probably not advisable.
So this doesn't mean extrinsic rewards, money, bonuses are totally useless or should be abolished.
Absolutely not. That's a common misinterpretation.
Yeah.
Pink is very clear. It's not about if we use rewards, but how and when. It's about being much smarter and more nuanced about them.
Okay, so what's the smart way?
The absolute non-negotiable starting point is based on rewards. This is about fair pay, salary, benefits. Are they adequate? Are they equitable internally? Are they fair compared to the market?
Taking money off the table.
That's Pink's phrase, exactly. If people are worried about making ends meet, if they feel unfairly compensated, none of the intrinsic stuff AMP will take root. You have to get the baseline right first. Fairness is key.
Right. Pay people fairly first, then what?
Then you need to match the type of reward to the type of task. This is crucial. Remember those if-then rewards. If you do this specific thing, then you get this specific reward.
The standard bonus structure, often.
Right. Those can work, but Pink argues they're really only suitable for those routine algorithmic tasks. The simple, repetitive stuff where you don't need creativity. Why? Because they narrow focus, which is actually helpful for just executing a clear procedure.
Okay, so if-then for simple mechanical work, what about the complex creative stuff?
For that, Pink suggests using now-then rewards. These are different. They're offered after the task is completed, often as a surprise, like, wow, you did an amazing job on that project, here's a bonus.
So it's not dangled beforehand as the reason to do the work.
Exactly. It's positioned as recognition for great work already done, assuming the baseline pay is fair and the environment supports autonomy, mastery, and purpose. It feels more like appreciation and less like control, so it's less likely to kill intrinsic motivation.
And what about non-money rewards?
Hugely important. Things like genuine recognition, specific positive feedback, opportunities for growth or learning. These are powerful motivators and generally much safer. They directly feed those needs for competence and connection without the potential downsides of contingent cash rewards.
So be thoughtful. Use if-then only for routine tasks. Use now-then surprises or non-tangible rewards like praise for creative work, but only after ensuring fair pay and a supportive AMP environment.
That's a good summary of Pink's practical advice. Now, it is worth mentioning, just briefly,
Oh, academic debate incoming.
just a little nuance. While Pink and others really popularized the idea that extrinsic rewards often crush intrinsic motivation, some later research, particularly field studies in actual companies, suggests the picture might be slightly more complex.
How so?
Well, some studies, like one by Ledford, Fang, and Gerhardt, looked at white-collar workers and found that in their sample, intrinsic and extrinsic motivation sometimes went together. People high on one tended to be high on the other.
So they weren't always opposites.
Not always in that context. And they found pay for performance was sometimes positively linked to intrinsic interest, maybe because it signaled competence or achievement. They also talked about a sorting effect,
Meaning?
meaning people who are naturally intrinsically motivated might actively choose to work for companies that have pay-for-performance systems because they see it as a way to be recognized for their competence. So the real world isn't always like a controlled lab study.
Okay, so the takeaway isn't necessarily rewards bad, but more like rewards complicated.
Pretty much. The consensus seems to be that rewards can increase or decrease intrinsic motivation depending on how they're administered and perceived. They probably don't hurt motivation for boring tasks anyway, because there's no intrinsic motivation to kill. The key is careful design. Rewards can be administered in ways that support feelings of competence and autonomy, especially if tied to positive feedback and clear goals within a culture that already values AMP. It requires thought, not just throwing money around.
So the core message of AMP holds, but the interaction with rewards needs careful handling. Got it. Hashtag outro. Wow. Okay, that was genuinely a deep dive. We've gone from like a basic survival instinct
Motivation 1.0.
through the era of carrots and sticks
Motivation 2.0.
and landed in this much richer understanding of what really drives us today. Autonomy, mastery, and purpose. Motivation 3.0.
It really is a paradigm shift.
It is. We saw how those old rewards can seriously backfire for creative, complex work, which is, let's face it, most work these days. And we discovered these powerful, innate desires we all have to direct our own lives, to get better at things that matter to us, and to contribute to something bigger than ourselves.
And the practical takeaway is clear. Pay people fairly, absolutely. Take money off the table as an issue, but then focus relentlessly on creating an environment where autonomy, mastery, and purpose can flourish. That's the secret sauce for engagement and high performance in the modern world.
It's fascinating, isn't it? Understanding intrinsic motivation isn't just some soft, nice-to-have HR initiative.
Not at all. It's essential. Essential for individuals to feel fulfilled and engaged, and essential for organizations to unlock creativity and achieve sustainable success. It's really an affirmation of our humanity, recognizing we're driven by more than just profit. We're purpose maximizers too.
And knowing this, it empowers you, the listener, doesn't it? You can start looking for, or maybe even help create, environments that really feed these deeper drives.
Absolutely. In your job, your hobbies, your community.
So as we wrap up, here's something for you to think about as you go about your day. Consider your own life right now, your work, your side projects, your passions. Where do you already feel a strong sense of autonomy, mastery, or purpose? Which activities really light you up?
And perhaps more importantly, where do you feel those elements are lacking? Where could you proactively seek out or cultivate more autonomy, more opportunities for mastery, or a stronger connection to purpose in your life?
Really thinking about that could be the first step towards unlocking a whole new level of drive and fulfillment.